Name. Yes, the TV name is Jane King, and I'm clearly not at the NASDAQ. So we're still in quarantine, and I'm in my apartment in New York. But it is wonderful to be with all of you here today. And as you mentioned, we're going to be talking about blockchain in sports and entertainment. And we have just a very accomplished panel here today with lots of different perspectives on this industry. So let's introduce our panel. We've got Kazim Attila, the CEO and founder of fan engagement platform Iconic. Also, Jose Luis Rosa Medina, the Senior Director, Corporate Partnerships and Licensing, EuroLeague Basketball. Misha Schur, Global Vice President of MediaCom for Sports and Entertainment, and Tyson Henley, the Chief Commercial Officer of AS Monaco. So great to have you all here, and I hope I was very close in pronouncing everybody's name right.
All good, Jane.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Very good. So let's start with just allowing you all to introduce yourself and kind of talk to me a little bit about your current roles, elaborate on how you're currently dealing with the COVID pandemic since it's impacting everybody globally. Do you want to start, Tyson?
Yeah, good afternoon, Jane. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to be here and to share some views and some discussions. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of AS Monaco, and simply means I'm responsible for both now and in the future, all the commercial revenues and the commercial strategy for the club and how we ultimately commercialize and monetize all the assets we have. And I think I have other backgrounds, my previous backgrounds in brands as well, and I've worked on both the agency and the media side. So very much focused now on the club side, and glad to be part of this conversation for that reason. I think to answer your question, Jane, I think the COVID, obviously, I think the whole world, both business and private, has been challenged in the last few months. The way we as a club and as teams within the club have managed it, very simply, is to simplify how we work, to communicate more intensely internally through mechanisms like this, but also very importantly, if you like, put the commercial and marketing hats on to commercialize and discuss with the commercial side of the club and the partners we have. We don't just have take the money and sit back in good and bad times. We have a philosophy where we have partnerships and we honor that. So I think keeping a good dialogue with the partners and the commercial partners during this period, one, to show that we were there, and I think two, to talk with them on the challenge they had as businesses, because every business has had its challenge, and to begin how we see the way out of the post-COVID era together. And all of that dialogue and communication was important because maybe we adjusted some things in our thinking through that process. But the most important thing for me as the Chief Commercial Officer was there was dialogue, and our partners realized that. So I think it was communication. We looked at transferring value a lot because we all shifted to a more digital domain, whether it was meeting protocol like this or it was delivery of rights. We didn't have live matches. We didn't have live valuable inventory in the same way that football traditionally would. So we looked to transfer as much value as we could into other sectors to maintain a certain value and platform for our partners in the same period. So I think communication, transfer, and to start the planning of exiting the COVID period, which we're hopefully all coming out of now. That's the way we would.
Let's hope so. Thank you very much. So Kazim, would you like to weigh in? What brings you here today? And tell me a little bit about Iconic as well.
No, definitely, Jane. As mentioned before, Iconic is a new fan engagement platform whereby we focused ourselves on the sport and entertainment world. Our aim is to bring all sports and entertainment actually in one single platform. As everybody knows, there are many dedicated apps, right? Many dedicated for football, for basketball, for Formula One, for boxing, or whatever it is. So you have the social media channel. So every fan is hopping, from one channel to another channel. And, as a frustrated fan, it's a big thing. So what Iconic has done is focusing on a sector base, which is one of the biggest market if we look at on how people get associated with a product, so which is fan base. And we put them actually in one platform. Looking at your question reference, how the impact on COVID had on us. Of course, we are a new company, right? We launched around the end of January. We started announcing partnerships in February, very proudly, with the likes of, of course, the EuroLeague Basketball, AS Monaco, Olympique Marseille, and of course, drawing Champions League, etc., our strategic partners with the likes of Mediacom and many others. And while we are on the shift, suddenly, we get this problem, the coronavirus. So everything is on hold, especially for a new company. And yeah, that definitely, clearly and sadly, a big impact, on everyone, as Tyson already said, and especially as well on the sports and entertainment world, right? It was like on hold. And we have seen the shift towards digital consumption of sports and entertainment in a totally different way. As you can see with the live, with the football matches that are played now, there are new technologies are putting in the stadium to make an impact, for the fan base that are, watching it from home. So it is definitely a new world if you look at it. For us, we have two sides of the coin. As I actually was saying before, when I came in this panel in the announcement, one of the sad part, what happened to us was, we were in the middle of a closing of investments, and that, put suddenly on a hold. So that was a big thing. But on the other hand, we have been, growing, in such a way that we couldn't believe ourselves and even others. It has, created almost like acted as a catalyst for the growth, because people started really understanding what we are doing. Sport clubs and leagues, have really started, to realize the importance what we are doing on the digital element, focusing on the fan base. And demand of Iconic has increased as a result, over this last 3-4 months. Incredible. So, of course, we don't stop there. We are looking even at solutions on the COVID in the sport and entertainment that we are working with our partners and making the best out of it, Jane.
Okay, so and Misha, talk to me a little bit about Mediacom, what it is that the company does, and then how has the pandemic impacted sports brand building?
Yeah. So at the core, Mediacom is one of the biggest media advertising communication businesses in the world. So, and as an extent, we are a sport and entertainment business that sits alongside that, because you think about the way that everything has converged in recent times, to treat sponsorship or partnerships or sport and entertainment as a silo just doesn't make any sense, because it's very difficult to drive any sort of impact if it's not connected to everything else that brands are doing. If Coca-Cola are trying to speak to consumers through advertising in this way, and they've got sponsorship over here in music and sport, and they're doing something that is disconnected, it makes no sense. So our role predominantly is, how can we be the entryway for our brand clients into culture, right? So every single company in the world, I would say most of the companies in the world have the same challenge, and that's relevance. They're less and less relevant to people, right? So, we know that something like, if 75% of companies disappear tomorrow, no one would notice. That's so that's the challenge. So how can we as a business help them drive relevance, cultural relevance, with people they're trying to connect with? So, and that could be through sport, it could be through film, music, original entertainment, gaming, and so on. But any environment where people are choosing to spend their time, and where we can authentically integrate those companies. So, and what's been interesting during the past couple of months is on that side, a lot of the clients have sort of taken a step back and reevaluated sort of where they've been investing their money, and where, who going forward perhaps is best placed for them to deliver, to connect with people who, and particularly when it comes to being very sort of forward-thinking, digitally led organizations. So I think and we've been working through that process with them to say, hey, when we come out of this, the types of organizations that you want to look at and align with look like this. But interestingly, we started to, in the last sort of 18 months, start to do quite a bit of work with teams and rights holders and organizations on that side. And that business has really accelerated for us through this process, because now every single team, league, federation realize that they have to quickly sort of get on this digital transformation journey. And unless they are unless they can quickly and sort of adapt and come across and be able to deliver in the sort of in the new connected digital world, they're not going to be relevant to their fans or their commercial partners. So all of a sudden, we've got quite big projects with major teams because we are at heart a media and advertising business. We understand what it takes for them to build themselves up as a proper media business that can compete for the time of the fans and the brands. So that's been where we are. Yeah.
So, and then Jose, let's bring you in here. So talk to me about basketball. It's an indoor sport for the most part. I mean, how has the pandemic impacted that? Has that been more negatively impacted than other sports, would you say?
I think it absolutely played a big role. So in our case, a suspension, what started out to be a suspension, became a cancellation of the league. So we actually missed about 25% of the games this year. So that was quite a sad moment for us, an unprecedented time for us during the COVID. I believe sports has always been immune to any type of crisis, or at least we were lucky enough to be immune to any type of crisis. So, even 2008 or 2013 were, double-digit growth years for us. But this is a time truly where you're forced to change, right? And
Okay, I think he froze. Can everybody hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Let's let him get back in the loop here. Hopefully his connection will improve. And let's go on to the next question. Current events. So we've seen these police brutality protests going on all over the world. They've especially been going on here in the U.S. So there's a strong reaction to this in the U.S. in several cities. Not just to this, but systematic racism. That whole thing has been brought up again. And we've seen a lot of these sports apparel brands in particular be very vocal about this. Nike comes to mind. They've been very out in front about this. What role do you think sports should play in these type of political events? It seems kind of dangerous to me because it's very controversial. What do you guys think? We'll start with Misha.
Yeah. Well, I think we've hit the point now where
sorry, back guys, but connection problems.
Okay, we'll come back to you.
A COVID thing.
Okay. All right, Misha, go ahead, and then we'll hit Jose.
I think we've hit. I think we've hit a point now where you can't be on the fence with these things, and I think that what we're realizing is that as much as some people want to believe that sport should just be sport and nothing else, sport is a major part of society. It's a reflection of society in many ways, and I think because of the profile of sport and because of the profile of the athletes, there is an incredible opportunity for the industry and entertainment as well, to use the platform to to drive some of the social change that we want to see in our society. So I think it's been great. I think we've seen Premier League came back yesterday, the types of statements they make. We've seen talent, some of the things that talent have been doing with LeBron James and others, phenomenal. I think it's amazing for sports people, for sports organizations, to use their platform, because this isn't really, I don't think there is any argument about this. I mean, I don't think that you can argue that there is any other way to look at this other than we should be doing everything against, to have more equality and so I love seeing such an outpouring from the sporting community and the support, and that's what we need. That's what's required to drive this conversation on, make sure it's top of mind. But my only I guess concern is, it's very easy to put a black square in your social media feed or to put something on a sleeve. ultimately, I want to see some change. I want to see real change. What are these organizations doing beyond the kind of, the things that we can see to actually implement the types of changes that will benefit sport and the wider society as a whole.
Now, Jose, we were just talking about sports companies, apparel companies, leagues, and so forth weighing in on some of these political events, very heated political events going on globally. Nike comes to mind. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously, hearing Misha, I absolutely agree, and that's one of our core message. Obviously, there's zero tolerance towards what has happened, and social exclusion as a whole is a big part of the messaging that are part of our core values. And to Misha's point earlier before, I agree with the fact that sports shouldn't only be a platform that communicates these messages, but actually acts upon them. We take that very seriously, as we don't believe we're custodians only of our brand. We're absolutely also custodians of our community. So we have, a social outreach program, but also a program that literally goes into the heart of our communities, and we play in 13 different countries where over 200 social coaches are taught to talk to kids in their communities every single year. And as I said, the problems in these 13 different countries where we play are very different, but social exclusion is one that happens in all of them, sadly. So we've been tackling that, and that was being one of our core pillars of our program, that usually are about going into the community and creating these social coaches that talk with groups of 20 kids. So that means that every single coach reaches 100, 150 kids every year, and we roll out in that program a lot of those coaches in those different communities. So that means we're actually reaching a lot of people with that message.
So Kasim, what has been Iconic's approach to this?
Great question. I hope I can give a great answer on that, Jane. The slogan of Iconic stands for "Become One." This is definitely a very important moment to address very important issues when we look at this kind of stuff. But to be honest, this is not new. This has been going on for 10, 20, 50, 100 years, and everyone has tried many things. And as Misha said as well, you can put something on your sleeve, as you have seen, when the football started again, they are kneeling, to show the gesture. But you know what? It has to be more than gesture. It has to be action. You can talk about it, but if you don't do the right action, what is the point about it? Then you could at least say, oh, but I talked about it, I support it. It has to be done more. Myself, I'm born in Turkey. I was 4 years old when I came to Holland. And we were living in an area where there was prominently, Dutch people, and we were new, and a foreigner. There were not many foreigners, so I grew up with it, right? I grew up with, very soft of racism. It wasn't because in schools there was educated about, hey, we are all together. There are no differences, and I believe has to start with education, because it's something that you grow up with it, right? It's something that your brains shows you, because you are not born racist, okay? You become racist due to the fact of things that you see, things that is around your environment, your family, your people around. It makes where you live, what you do, what you brought up with. And what Iconic stands for is bringing people together. I mean, one of the things that I always say, people say, music is the universal language. I disagree with that. I believe sport is the universal language. And why I'm saying that is you can bring 22 kids from different countries, different race, different languages. They can't speak the language. Throw the ball in the field. They will play football. And not only they will play football, they will support each other as a team to play the game. If I sing in Turkish, you love the music, but maybe the lyrics offend you. But due to the fact you don't know Turkish or Dutch, you don't know. So we believe in the ability to sport unite like no other industry, but it has to unite in a different way. It has to educate. It's not just like, kick racism out or do this. They're trying this for 30 years. I mean, it's nothing new. And again, like, Jose and Misha said, there has to become a change. And change, the power of change is doing it differently. You can't say, oh, we're doing it like this, but you see it's not working. So why doing it again? If it's not working, change it so that it works. And it starts when they are kids. And, that's the reason as well, from our point, we are creating a more purposeful fanning business. As we always said, there are the three pillars: more personal, more rewarding, but also more purposeful. And this experience is a key aspect of our work. I've traveled to more than 60 countries. I'm very proud of it because I learned a lot. And if you don't learn, then everything that you live, what's the point to it? And, we use, modern technologies for Spanish Plus leagues to promote and support, the range of good causes, like Jose said, in so many countries. But we have to change it. And, that's why I wear, a Muhammad Ali t-shirt. For me, he is more than a role model. I'm more than a sportman. This individual, this great individual, has fought during the worst time as a black person. Everything was against him. If it's the chances to become a world champion, to take the things away from him in a very dominant white environment during the time he was boxing. And I believe the way he does, which is talking, changing. We have to make changes, get into the market, put proof is in the pudding while eating it, right? So it's not talking is enough, and it's doing it. So that is where Iconic comes from the slogan, become one. Let's become one for a better society, a better community. And we have already seen it over the last 3-4 months. When they say lockdown, we all stayed in. And because we thought, we need to make a change. We can't, give the virus to someone else or whatsoever, because we were thinking about others and us. And look what has changed over the last 3-4 months. The weather has changed. It became clearer water. We have seen all the pictures, I'm sure, all of us. So that means we can change, and it starts with us.
It's funny you mentioned about sports being a language, because I have a friend who's Indian and always talks about when they play the Pakistanis in cricket, how everybody gets along, but other times they don't. They're bitter enemies. And he felt like if they would do more sports, that would solve some of their political issues. So it's interesting you bring that up. But let's wrap up with Tyson here on this subject. So as football club with community beliefs, how do you see this issue, Tyson?
Yeah, I think, to be fair, the guys have said, most of the things that I completely support. It goes without saying that as a club and as a major European football club, we're completely supportive of the anti-racism campaigns, the principles, any kind of prejudice. It's very much something we stand against, and we support campaigns against this area. So I think that would be understood. I think Kazim raised a really good point. It's sport. Ironically, what should sport do? Sport, I think there's a balance between how much responsibility or not sport should take, but sport does have such an intense spotlight. And the individuals we've seen, within that, we've seen recently voiced, for example, people like Marcus Rashford, Raheem Sterling, who I've worked with closely in the past in various ways, that they are ambassadors in another way. And I think sport gives the spotlight to wide element of the population for the right reason, for values, for intensity. I think it's right at the right moment, in the right way, to use that spotlight as an advantage to kind of deflect or reflect into society the challenges that we all need to tackle together. And I think Kazim made a good point that, ironically, sport, and it's about, like Misha said at the beginning, it's about your actions more than the badge. I'm a little bit against just putting a label on as well, but a lot against it. I think you need to reflect first on what you can achieve. I think the way we work as a club, very much within the community, across the teams, all ages and all levels, I think we're very, very, believing in all the equality issues. So there's no question there. But sport is probably one of the best examples of where all those values are reflected in a genuine meritocracy. And I think that's almost sport can invert back to the population to say, this is how it should be done. Like Azim said, throw a ball out, all kids of all nationalities, of all genres will kick a ball and work with each other. It's a natural thing. I think sport maybe needs to look at ways it can translate those instincts, that natural passion, those values, back to society and say, hey, look, we're doing this. Why don't you look at how you can do something similar within communities, within society? I think sport's actually a good example of where it more or less naturally happens or has grown up as a meritocratic area, a meritocratic principle.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And by the way, part of being the moderator's job is keeping an eye on the clock. And believe it or not, we only have 10 minutes left. So I just wanted to, so we'll make sure, I definitely want to get to blockchain and fan engagement. So let's start with blockchain. And Misha, let's start with you. I mean, what kind of advice would you give to sports owners, executives? How could they use blockchain technology, corporate sponsorships? I mean, the whole package of sports. How do you see blockchain playing a role in that?
A very important role, because I think we're entering there's so much talk around fan engagement, and it's almost, sometimes I wonder what that even what it really means. I think we realize that sports fans are very avid. They want to get as close as they can to the teams and the action and the players that they follow. And what blockchain allows you to do is to basically to enable that interaction and then monetize that interaction. So whether that's from I guess if you're trying to if you want people to feel more part of the club, I mean, you could issue shares, right? People can feel like they actually have ownership of this team. They're not just I think what we're doing is we're moving from fan engagement to fan involvement. That is the future. So fans want to be involved. They want to feel like they've got some skin in the game, and blockchain allows you to have skin in the game. So sports, the big questions for Tyson and other EuroLeague and sports is how do we going forward in the world where all the fans are on their mobile phones, and how do you compete for their time? How do you deliver value for them in this ecosystem where there's so much choice, where you make them feel valued, you reward them for their loyalty. So I think it's going to become a really critical component, not just around keeping people, rewarding fans for their for the time that they spend with you, but also opening up commercial opportunities, which will have to exist for sports organizations going forward.
Yeah, Kazim, what do you think? And what does Iconic think about blockchain in sports?
Of course, blockchain is a part of us, but I want to say one thing, is an important tool, right, that we are implementing in our platform, and, encouraging, like Misha said, a trustworthy and efficient transferring, if that is data, rights, shares, whatever it is. With blockchain, we get a sense of transparency, which is, of course, one of the most absolute core, what we try to aim to establish trust with partners and users. But we mustn't forget one thing, right? This trust and this stuff that has been there for 50, 100 years, if it was lawyers, if it was, notaries and other entities. But we mustn't, that's what my belief is. We shouldn't use, I would say, blockchain as a nice buzzword, right? It's like, when we were talking, about the racist scenario, but, to use it as rather as a vehicle to deliver very powerful change. So I come back to the racism element. It's nice to put, Black Lives Matters, or any life matters, for the matter of fact, anything, right? Just to put it there, just to talk about blockchain and that blockchain is the holy grail. No, we make a big mistake. We have seen that over the last 3-4 years when blockchain came in the market and people were jumping on it, and people were jumping on it for multiple reasons. One, it was actually, trying to come on this bandwagon, right? Like a Gold Coast, that they were trying in and make money of it. Others, really saw, wow, this can really make a change. So how can we do it? Because it was new. And this is nothing new what's happening now. Go back to the internet time when internet came out, right? When we were internet, oh, wow, that's cool. So we can send email like this. We don't need to have the fax. And those time you had this, ISDN, just to send one paragraph of email, it took 5 minutes, ridiculous. So, so for us, the change is to revolutionize fan engagement. And, Misha said a very important point. What is fan engagement, right? People talk about it, another buzzword, fan engagement. Okay, but what is fan engagement? And for us, what I have always seen that, when you educate, you do well, you want a diploma or you want a good, result. If it's, a sport, basketball, football, whatever the sport, you want to win, you want to get a reward. That's in us. And that is also with this, yes, like, you use the app, you use all the stuff. And what we try to create and what we are trying to say to every rights holder as well, hey, listen, you need to create a better, stronger relationship with your fans. Because at the end of the day, the rights holders are nothing without their fans. And the fans are always looking for a rights holder club. And it starts from the age of 6, 7 when they start, playing sport. So that is an important one. That's why we are always jumping always on the 3 main things: a more personal, a more rewarding, and a more purposeful fan experience, and this will always be our focus. It is that ecosystem that you come to it. But of course, again, blockchain is not the holy grail. We are always saying we are not a blockchain company. And anyone who says, what do? We're a blockchain company, then technically they don't have a business. And that's the reason they say the buzzword blockchain, because it's hype. Because we are a sport and entertainment company whereby we built our platform on native iOS, native Android, PHP.NET, and other technologies, and some elements of blockchain where it adds value. If it doesn't add value, we will not use it. It's not that, apps coming out, they say we are an Android company or we are an iOS company. It's ridiculous. It's a methodology that we are using. And, and it is, again, the buzzword, and we will be always focused on innovation. And blockchain is, of course, at the heart of this for us at this moment. But who knows in 3 years? Maybe a new technology comes. And anyone who says no, look over the last 100 years. So you can't say no. So for us, again, it is part of it. It's important, but like any other technology, and it has to add value to the ecosystem. If it doesn't add value, what is the point?
Okay, so, and then Tyson, in our final few minutes here, kind of combine what you've seen with blockchain and fan engagement, how they could work together, and then what you're doing in those areas.
Yeah, I think to build on what Kasim's saying very, very openly, the reason we have the partnership with Iconics is, they've crystallized a vision that from a direction that we believe very much and very passionately as a club and a major rights owner, we have to embrace more and more. And I think I like some of the references to the past. It reminds me, I think blockchain is not, as Kasim said, for its own entity, it's not just about that. That provides us all with a skeleton. Now we've got to put the body on the top, and we've got to work the body out, we've got to get it fit, we've got to build the muscles that are right for the task we have, but it does give us a skeleton. Now we've got to really fine-tune our diet and our training mechanism to deliver what this athlete needs in the end. I think that's the analogy. It reminds me not so long ago when we had, well, not so long ago, maybe we're just all getting old, but the period about 8-9 years ago when social media was the buzzword. Yeah, social media, we've got to be this, we've got to have that. Misha in the middle of Media Land will remember that more than most. All the big brands were saying, we have to be social media, we have to use it. What are you going to do on it? I don't know, but we just got to be there. We'll get there. They can see our logo. Yeah, but then what are people going to do? Well, I don't know. We've got to be on social media. Same thing. Blockchain's a little bit like that, probably more advanced now. The world's more digital now. But it's the same point. You've got to figure out what it needs for you, what it means for you as a rights holder, what it means for you as a business and a rights holder. And a big part of our business is engaging, satisfying, and ultimately monetizing our relationship with our fans. The analogy I said with the skeleton, we've got the skeleton now. We've got great ambition from Iconics and Kasim and his guys. We now want to demand or build on the demand we know is there, make our fans happier, more engaged, more often, give them opportunities which we can monetize secure. And we're looking at that from everything from the stadium implementation to the fan entertainment and sport and entertainment side, They want wider than sport, even sports at their core. They expect more. That is all the areas that we're developing with Kazim as part of our relationship to take that forward and to use the blockchain skeleton, if you like.
Okay. Now, Jose, we only have about 2 minutes. I want to finish up with you. So how do you see this blockchain fan engagement in terms of the Euro League, and how are things working there?
So we had to look for a partner that helped us with rewarding, information sharing, data, streaming, fantasy, and that for over 40 clubs. So it was a tough roadmap, and what we came across in those 2 years in that digitalization process was that the user the experience was very bad with a lot of different partners. So we really wanted to look for one place that kind of had it all, or a big chunk of it, and we took a while to find the right partner. And I believe we have with Kazim and Iconic. So we're very excited, very much like Tyson, about the future, and we're going to roll that out over both EuroLeague basketball and the Euro Cup. So 2 different leagues, and like I said, over 40 clubs. So that is one tool for a lot of engagement, a lot of things, a lot of streaming, fantasy business, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot to do in the next couple of months with Iconic.
Well, thank you all so much. I mean, I think we all agree this is a rapidly changing industry, and it's going to be interesting, if nothing else. So I really appreciate your time and being so generous with your expertise today. And it was great to hear from you. Thank you, Misha and Kazim and Jose and Tyson, for joining us. And I'm Jane King in New York, and we'll send it back to BlockDown 2.0.
Thanks, Jane.